Best place for us to start is with what people are telling us the most. And as I said, I speak to maybe 10, 15 new salespeople every week, and I have done on average for the last 5 years. So you can do the maths there. And we are barely scratching the surface with this industry, I'm sure. And the most common thing we are told is that they've never had any access to any advice, any education, any guidance. And it's evident, right? When I meet a sales leader with 40 grand in a pension, who's been earning 200, 300 for a decade or so, right? The level of earnings and success that they've enjoyed is not commensurate with what they're saving towards their future. And it's because, again, it's not like they've been let down. It's just a missed opportunity, right? And our position here, partnered with Sales Confidence, is to educate people on these problems earlier. First stage, educate. The second one is to guide people. So explain, this is what's available to you. This is what others in a similar position have done, and as early as possible, right? We all know that timing is everything with customers, with prospects, with anyone. Same in our world. But actually, I'm sure everyone would agree that getting on top of this early takes a lot of the pressure away. Investments take time. And for those that need it, full financial planning advice. Because as James said, most people we meet, you think about end of quarter, even if you're doing well, you've got deals to think about, you've got your own life commitments as a sales leader, you've got your team to think about. There's 101 things we all have to manage every day. Most people tell us they don't want to look at their old pensions, right? And they don't want to think about this, and they just physically can't. But it's not a nice to have, right? It's a need. So what I'm going to focus on first of all is just 3 basic things that I think everybody on this call needs to know. And I hope most people will take something away from this. It starts very basic, right? And I dropped this onto my first presentation to the Sales Confidence members not long ago, that if you earn over 100K, you need to complete a self-assessment. I'm hoping that the 100 people on here, everybody knows that. But if there isn't, there we go. You need to be aware that once you start earning over 100,000, which is often the first milestone that we talked about today, you need to complete one. It can be done online by yourself or via an accountant. If you are unsure about this or anything that I go through today, please email me. I will point you in the right direction. This is the point of the presentation today, is to educate you on the things you need to be aware of and make sure we drive a better outcome. So everybody here, I'm assuming, will be doing a self-assessment, or needs to, was just realized, but also will be aspiring to in the future. Not aspiring to do a self-assessment, clearly, but you'll need to. This is arguably the most important slide, I think, for today. And I've posted a lot about this on LinkedIn recently, so hopefully some guys that are on the call today can sort of validate in the chat, or James again can talk a bit about this. This is something that's been cropping up more and more. So I'm not sure if anybody knows the difference between salary sacrifice or relief at source. I can go through it very briefly today, but the call to action for you is to check how your pension contributions are being made. And most people on this call go, I just honestly don't even care. I wouldn't even know what that means. The reason you need to care is because if it's been set up as relief at source, you may be owed tax. I need to say may, because obviously I don't know your situation, but if anybody's seen the recent posts I've been doing on LinkedIn to just highlight and educate on this problem, essentially relief at source means that you only get basic rate tax relief, which is 20%, so a lower tax threshold. But if you're a 45% taxpayer, which many of you are, then actually we need to make sure that you're claiming the right tax relief and not missing tax that you're owed. Salespeople often tell us they want to reduce the amount they lose in tax. They come to us for technical advice on how to fund a pension or do other sort of tax planning. And really, they just need to know, stage 1, how their own pension contributions are being made. So if nothing else, an action for you all, and I've put 3 takeaways at the end, is to look at your active pension contributions, log into the portal. Many people will be going, I don't even know where it is. I don't even know how much I'm contributing. This is the point, right? Let's raise the awareness. Let's focus on this earlier so we can make some better decisions. I can help you with this. Just let me know. As I alluded to, there isn't a salesperson on the planet that doesn't want to, again, another bold claim, but based on my experience, a pretty safe bet, that doesn't want to reduce the amount they lose in tax, The simplest way to reduce the amount you lose in tax is to pay more into your pension. And forgive me if there's a majority on this call that know this already, but this is the best advice that we are giving to salespeople every single day, is how much they can pay into the pension based on their earnings and the right thing for them. Because this year, the allowance is 60,000, unless it's tapered. So that's another conversation that can be reduced if your earnings exceed a certain threshold. But let's say it's 60,000 for the majority of people on this call. If, like that common example I gave a minute ago, you're paying 9,000 a year, 9% of your basic, you've got 51K available. If you paid, this is just one example, as a 45% taxpayer, let's say your comp was 200, okay? This is just an easy example to give. If you paid 40,000 into a pension, it would immediately become 50K. So you make a 10K reclaim of tax immediately, guaranteed. That's 10,000 in tax you would have lost this tax year. There will be people on this call that didn't even know you could pay into a pension personally, just thought it was the employer. And this is why we're doing this. But as I said a minute ago, with the relief at source conversation, that would only be 20% of the relief. So as a 45% taxpayer, you still need to claim the other 25%. Via self-assessment, which an accountant could help you with, you claim 25% of the 50K, which is 12.5. So the 27K is the net contribution. 40 invested, 50 goes in with the 10K relief. You get 12.5 via self-assessment paid back to you, not into the pension, paid back to you. So it's a net cost of 27.5, gives you 50K. I've just seen a quick comment come in. I know we're coming into the end, but it's a perfect time to address it. Pension versus ISA, they are both the right products to use. I'm not saying one over the other, but the pension provides the immediate gains. So that 40K becoming 50 and then getting 12.5 back. One, you can't pay 40K into a pension. It's 20K per annum. It is still tax-free growth, but you can't pay any more than 20K a year. With the pension, you make an immediate 40 to 45% gain. So that's why we prioritize that. If it's the right thing for the clients, situation specific, but actually it's the best guaranteed return up front for tax relief. Again, just to highlight what's available, just to educate and aware. Just going to summarize the 3 common challenges, very simple little framework here that we see. Again, lots of people on this call will resonate with all, if not, at least one of these. So again, we can start to demonstrate a bit of the impact, a bit of guidance around what sort of solutions are in place as well. Again, I think James mentioned there's a sort of 100 or so people on the call this afternoon. Thank you again for giving your time on a Wednesday. Many of you would have worked at multiple companies already in your career. Even early careerists, you might have been in the industry for 10 years. Conceivably, you could have worked at 3, 4 companies. So you will have multiple pensions. And most often, people don't even know where they are. They don't know how much is invested in them. They don't know how they are invested themselves. They don't know what level of income it could provide them in the future. That's always a problem, right? That's a real sort of blind spot. So what we're seeing is that these default funds and actually having all these multiple pensions is providing more admin, more statements each year, and it's easier to put it off and off, right? I've met a client before who's 51 as a sales director, had 17 pensions. He openly admitted on the call, he was like, I know I need to do this. I physically refuse because of how much admin it'll take. And again, that's quite an extreme example. You can imagine that most people I meet have anywhere between 3 and 5 at least. The cause of this, again, you guys are in the industry, you'll see this, right? And IC's average 10 years, less than 3 years. I think the last time I saw it was 15 months. Someone correct me, feel free to, like to be wrong. But the sort of average expression was 3 months to sort of ramp and then 12 months, one sort of full calendar year to really sort of hit the number. And then they move on to the next opportunity. That's been the short-term use. Leaders, typically 3 to 5, depending on if there's an exit event opportunity. But if we think, even with the life-changing money that can be made in software sales, conceivably you will work for 2 to 3 decades. If you're super successful, you can get out within 2 to 3 decades, which is obviously the point I'm trying to make. You're going to work at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 companies. We have to stay on top of your pensions. Okay. Lack of pension, as I said a minute ago, the biggest threat to retirement capability is simply not having enough saved. And that is driven by the comp structure of most salespeople. It's not defaulting, it's not automated, it's not set up to create longer term wealth. It's set up for you to earn life-changing money. So the missing bit, the bridge between success and financial choice, security and freedom, is setting things up to make sure that you are on track. It's a personal responsibility. Pensions through the state pension today is 10,000. It's £203 a week. Nobody's retiring on that. Also kicks in at 68. There's no guaranteed pensions anymore, defined benefit. Some of us may have had parents or grandparents that enjoyed defined benefit pensions. In our generation, that won't be the case. We are personally responsible for our retirement capability. It's commensurate with what we're saving. So as soon as we get on this, the better. Just have an awareness. It's about educating you on where you are today. Tax and inflation won't come as any surprise, right? And I know the guys on the call that have seen my sort of first meeting slides will know that these are the 3 areas we focus on. So forgive me for repeating myself. But tax, again, no salesperson in the world needs to be told about tax, but it's understanding how it works on income, on shares, on other sort of assets that you may or may not have, whether it be rental properties or otherwise. That's a common sort of objective that I see. We talked a bit about life objectives. Lots of salespeople tell me they want a rental property. I say, why? Same talk track. I like the idea of passive income. Okay, why? Well, I work really hard for my income, and it's very, very difficult to continue at this intensity. So, okay, what level of income would you need from your rental properties? Well, I'd like to replace it with my entire income with rental property. Well, do you know the level of investment you need to make in property to completely replace the income you're enjoying today. It's going to cost a huge amount from you. Is that the best solution for you? I don't know. It's about understanding, right? So it comes back to that education point. Understand how things work, then I can show what others in a similar position have done. Tax is the biggest threat on an annual basis. 200k this tax year. So for anybody who's got an OT around 200k, that will be 84k in tax and national insurance. So 84k will be lost to HMRC through that. Now, again, we can't change that. We're not trying to change regulation. We're not claiming we can. Everything we're doing is HMRC approved. It's about being efficient with allowances. And inflation, more pertinent today, it's come down. Was it 6.8% today? Still far away from the government target of 2%. Inflation affects all of us. It's not so much the inflation in the last 10 months, 12 months that's been the issue, although that's now baked into the economy. If we look at it over the last 30, 40, 50 years, it's averaging about 4%. If you think about where you are in your career, you might be working for another 20 to 30 years. Inflation will have a massive impact on your retirement capability. Then when you're retired for another 20, 30 years, hopefully, at least, enjoying a fruitful retirement, inflation plays a part. You have to be thinking about how you're growing your money and protecting it from tax each year. Because if you're not, your hard work's being undone. And these are the sorts of challenges that when we highlight them to a senior sales leader, a CRO, they sit there and they go, I wish I knew this 20 years ago. You know, why haven't I been doing this beforehand? And it's because there is no education, there's no guidance, there isn't a support metric that I can see at scale in the SaaS industry. And I'm glad that we're being able to sort of pave the way with this with sales confidence. To wrap things up, here are 3 actionable takeaways. I think any sort of presentation I do, whether it be to a BDR, SDR, AE, leader, founder, CEO, whatever it may be, you're always going to make sure in a 30-minute call, you give someone something that can drive a better outcome. You know, the best way to prove you add value is to constantly give it, right? And that's something that we believe. So there's 3 things today that everybody can take away. If you've got old pensions, where are they? Contact the old employers, contact old colleagues, use the government pension tracing service. That's pretty unreliable, but the first 2 should get you there, right? Check old statements and old emails. Find out how much you have in total and how they're invested. Are they just the default solutions? A consolidation might be the right thing for you to do to avoid losing these in the future. I think the last stat I read was the £27 billion of lost pension funds in the UK. Lost. Ridiculous, right? You can't lose money, right? That's unforgivable. Check your pension contributions. I can guarantee there will be a small percentage of people on here that we would have just found £1,000 to £2,000 to £3,000 in tax that they otherwise would have lost. And I'd look forward to hearing who that was as well, right? So an action from today is let me know. If you look into your pension contributions, I'd love to share that success story again. Look at your active scheme, but you can also look back 4 tax years as well. And this is why it's important to know this early. Because if we did this conversation in 4 years' time, any pension contribution you're making today that might apply, doesn't matter, you've lost that tax relief forever. And again, we always talk about this with prospects, and when we're sort of talking about introductions, again, the guys that I work with on the call will know, there's no value in a client doing this in 5 years' time. If the timing's right and the approach is right and it's a good fit, they need to do it now because they're going to miss out on 5 years worth of tax advice and investment returns as well. Allowances shift every single year. The final point, and I think this is key for everyone on the call as well, think about what you could earn in the next 12 months. Then work out net of tax what that should be. Then take away, did this exercise today actually with a prospect, then take away what you will be spending on a monthly basis. That's how much you could save. Think about what you did in the last 12 months, the tax year before, how much were you saving? Be honest with yourself, be direct and say, okay, well, am I actually putting my money to good use? Just think about the intensity at which you have to work, the hundreds of meetings, the stress, the paranoia, the slight bit of relief that you get when a deal closes. Are you planning that money effectively to enable you to have full financial choice and security in the future? Or is it because there isn't a plan, there isn't that visibility, you don't have that awareness? Are you actually just losing it through tax and inflation and perhaps a little bit of discretionary spending where it doesn't need to be? So those are my 3 actionable takeaways.